So since we are done with revising the chapter input tax credit, the next chapter which I will take up for revision is payment of taxes. So we will try to revise quickly the chapter payment of taxes. See, the payment of taxes is also a very bigger chapter, but not very bigger, a reasonable size of the chapter. But not all the content from the chapter payment of taxes will be important from the examination perspective. So I am going to focus on a few aspects or key concepts of payment of taxes I'm going to explain. Okay, so listen carefully. So we'll try to close the revision in no time. So just I will spend half an hour on this chapter, payment of taxes, not more than that. So let me try to explain let me try to revise important content from payment of taxes. See, first of all, assume that till now, whatever we have revised, if you are a registered person, you are making any taxable supply, either of goods, services, or others. And at that point of time, whenever you are making a supply, you should give tax invoice. In that, you will collect GST. So you will collect the amount of GST from the recipient. And whatever amount of GST that you have collected from the recipient, can the registered person keep it with him? No. Whatever amount of GST that has been collected from the customer, that should be deposited. That should be paid to the government. So how the GST will be paid to the government? What is the manner of payment of taxes? That will be the major discussion in this chapter, payment of taxes. Now, in this chapter, first we need to remember that once you get the registration with the GST department, in your name, 3 ledgers will be opened. 3 ledgers will be opened. So you can call it as electronic liability register. 3 ledger accounts will be opened. So number 1, electronic liability register. Then we have electronic credit ledger. Then one more ledger will be opened in the name of the registered person, which is going to be electronic cash ledger. So like this, 3 ledgers will be maintained in the name of a registered person. Once you obtain the registration with the GST department, in the name of the registered person, they will maintain 3 ledgers. What are they? Electronic liability register, electronic credit ledger, electronic cash ledger. See, electronic liability ledger will be debited with the amounts which are required to be paid by the registered person. For example, assume you have made a supply. 1 lakh rupees is the value of supply. 18,000 rupees is your GST amount. Now you have an output tax liability of 18,000 rupees. You have a liability to pay the amount of 18,000 rupees to the government. So all the amount of taxes which are required to be paid by the registered person, all that will be debited to the electronic liability ledger. Whatever liabilities of the taxable person are there, either that could be because of making supplies or because of some demand order, because of some order of the GST department, whatever it is, whatever liabilities which you have to make payment to the government, all that will be debited to your electronic liability ledger. Then, sir, if I am a registered person, as we have seen in the previous chapter, input tax credit on whatever goods I have purchased, whatever services I have purchased, whatever capital goods I have purchased, on that I can avail input tax credit? No, I can avail input tax credit, right? So for example, if you bought the goods for the purpose of business, if you bought the services for the purpose of business, if you bought any capital goods for the purpose of business, on all that you can avail ITC or not? Yes, obviously. Sir, where that ITC will be there? So input tax credit, whatever ITC which you avail through your GSTR 3B, you will file the return GSTR 3B. Whatever in that GSTR 3B, you can say, sir, I am eligible for this much amount of input tax credit. So whatever amount of ITC which you are availing through your GSTR 3B, that ITC amount will be credited to the electronic credit ledger. Whatever input tax credit that you are claiming, that you are availing, that input tax credit will be credited to the electronic credit ledger. Then if you have to make any payment of cash, see, initially what will happen is, assume that I will tell you one simple example. 18,000 rupees is my liability. So first my liability will be debited to electronic liability ledger. Now will I pay this entire amount in my cash? No, you need not discharge all your liability by making payment of cash. First, what we will do, if we have any input tax credit, that we will utilize. Assume that I have a input tax credit of 12,000 rupees. Now what will happen is, whatever my output tax liability will be there, so whatever electronic credit ledger balance I am having, that I will use it first. Now what I will do is, I will debit the electronic credit ledger and I will credit the electronic liability ledger with this 12,000. So I don't have any more ITC. So first, my liability is there, debited to electronic credit ledger. I have an input tax credit which is credited to my electronic credit ledger. if I have to make any payment of taxes, first, as a prudent person, I will always make use of my ITC. Whatever ITC that I have, I will use. So first, I will transfer this my input tax credit in the electronic credit ledger by debiting the electronic credit ledger and credit in the electronic liability ledger. So balance, even after adjusting my input tax credit, still I am required to pay 6,000 rupees. In my example, I have to pay 6,000 rupees. How I will discharge this payment? What I will do is, I will deposit my cash from my bank account. I will deposit the cash in the electronic cash ledger. So whatever cash I am depositing, for example, I am depositing 6,000 rupees of cash in my electronic cash ledger. So the moment whatever cash I have deposited, that will go and sit in my electronic cash ledger. That will be created with the electronic cash ledger will be created with whatever amount that you are depositing. Now what I will do is, from this, I will transfer this 6,000 rupees once again to my electronic liability ledger. So I will credit this electronic liability ledger once again. So by this, I have discharged my entire liability of 18,000 rupees. Able to understand, everybody? So 3 ledgers will be maintained. Electronic liability ledger, in which all the liabilities which a registered person has to make a payment, that will be debited. Whatever ITC which you are availing or claiming, that will be credited to your electronic credit ledger. Whatever cash that you are depositing, that will be generally credited to your electronic cash ledger, and you will settle your liabilities in the electronic liability register by using the ITC which is there in the electronic credit ledger. If at all, after that also, if you are still required to make some payment, that much amount of money you will deposit in your electronic cash ledger and use the same for making payment of taxes to the government. Able to understand, everybody? So this is what regarding 3 ledgers which will be maintained in the name of registered person. See, if you are a registered person, you are required to pay various kinds of amounts. So you might be required to pay tax. When I say tax, CGST, SGST, UTGST, IGST. So these are the taxes which you are required to pay. Or you might be required to pay interest. Sometimes when you make delayed payment, you are even required to pay the tax along with interest. For late filing of return, you are required to pay even late fees also. Sometimes you do some violations, you might be required to pay penalties also, or there could be any other amount. When I say you are required to pay some amount, the amount which you are required to pay to the government, that could be in the form of tax, that could be in the form of interest, that could be late fee, that could be penalty, that could be other amount. Now, the thing which we have to remember here is, see, all this amount, whatever tax you are required to pay, whatever interest you are required to pay, whatever penalty you are required to pay, whatever late fee you are required to pay, whatever other amounts you are required to pay, everything will be debited to my electronic liability ledger. But one thing you have to always remember, I can use input tax credit, I can use the balance in my electronic credit ledger only for making payment of taxes. Only for making payment of tax amount only I can use my input tax credit which is credited in my electronic credit ledger. Whatever interest, late fee, penalty or other amounts which you are required to pay, that you have to always pay it using your cash only. For example, assume that you have a tax liability to pay 12,000. You have interest to pay. So total tax liability you have 12,000 rupees. There is some interest amount. You are required to pay 1,000 rupees of interest. In your electronic credit ledger, assume you have 13,000 rupees of ITC in your electronic credit ledger. Now what you can do is, against this 12,000 rupees of tax liability, you can use ITC which is there in your electronic credit ledger. 12,000 you can use. Okay, from my ITC 12,000 I have used. I still have 1,000 rupees of my input tax credit in my electronic credit ledger. Sir, can I use that ITC for making payment of interest? No, you can't use it. You have to always make the payment of interest, late fee, penalty or other amounts by using cash only, by debiting the cash ledger only, not by debiting electronic credit ledger. Able to understand whatever I am trying to explain here? Guys, able to follow? Okay, right. So now coming to the next most important part in the payment of taxes, manner of utilization of credit. Listen carefully. Manner of utilization of credit. This is very, very important. Compulsorily there will be a question from this manner of utilization of credit in this chapter. So for example, you are required to pay output tax liability. See, your output tax liability could be in the form of IGST. You might be required to pay some IGST. You might have output tax liability to pay CGST. You might have output tax liability to pay SGST. And you will have ITC. Even ITC also, you can have ITC of IGST amount. You can have ITC of CGST amount. You can have ITC of SGST amount also. Now, what is the manner of utilization? Sir, I have to pay this liabilities. I have some liability to pay under IGST head. I'm required to pay some CGST. I'm required to pay SGST, my output tax liability. I have credit. IGST credit also I have. CGST credit also I have. SGST credit also I have. How to utilize that credit? There is an order of utilization. You can't utilize the ITC in whatever manner you want. There is always one order of utilization. So what is the order of utilization? Listen carefully. If you have, first you have to start with utilizing IGST component. Whatever ITC of IGST you are having, first use it for IGST. First use it for adjusting IGST. If after adjusting for, I will do illustration, don't worry, I will tell you illustration. Definitely this is very important from the examination perspective. Definitely I will solve 2-3 illustrations to make you comfortable. From this question will definitely come. So whatever IGST credit you are having, first you have to use it for making payment of IGST. After that, still you are left with balance of IGST. You can use it for CGST or SGST in whatever manner you want. There is no specific order. But first, IGST balance, you have to use it only for discharging IGST first priority. After that, if still any excess amount is left out, that you have to use it for making payment of either CGST or SGST in any manner you want. Either you can say first I will use it for CGST, then SGST, or I will use first for SGST, then UGST. I will use 50-50, 60-40, your choice. But first you have to discharge, first you have to use ITC of IGST for making payment of IGST. After that, still if anything excess is left out, that you can use it for making payment of CGST or SGST in whatever manner you want. So whatever it is, first completely exhaust the IGST balance. First try to utilize complete IGST balance. Then come to CGST. Then come to CGST component. CGST, first you use it for making payment of CGST. CGST should be first utilized for making payment of CGST. After that also, if any balance is left out, then you can use it for making payment of IGST. Okay, CGST balance also I have used. Then come to SGST. SGST, first use it for making payment of SGST. After that, if any excess amount is left out, then you can use it for making payment of IGST. But one thing you have to always remember, you can't use the credit of CGST for making payment of SGST. You can't use the credit of SGST for making payment of CGST. So this is what the order of utilization of credit. Guys, able to follow? Very, very important point I have told here. Once again, I will repeat. Don't worry. I will do illustrations to make you understand. But you have to mug up order of utilization of credit. This information should be printed in your brain. So what is the manner of utilization of credit? Tell me. IGST. First start with IGST. First use it for IGST. Then whatever balance is left out, that you can use it for CGST or SGST in whatever manner you want. Then come to CGST. CGST balance should first be utilized for CGST. Balance, if there is any, I can use it for IGST. Then you come to SGST. First, SGST balance should be used for making payment of SGST. Balance, if any left, use it for IGST. CGST can't be used for SGST. SGST credit can't be used for making payment of CGST. Understood? So we'll try to do one solve one question that will help you understand. So let me add some illustration here. Okay. So I have one simple thing to solve here. So assume that I have a illustration. Even follow the format, whatever I am telling you. So we have output tax liability. We have some IGST liability. We have some CGST liability to pay. We have some SGST liability to pay. Similarly, we are also having ITC of IGST. We are also having ITC of CGST. We are also having ITC of SGST or UTGST. Follow the format. Whatever format I am going to say, follow the same format in the examination. First, you have to write output tax liability. And first, always write the column IGST, CGST, then SGST. Okay. Now, write output tax liability. What is output tax liability? 1000 rupees is IGST amount, 300 rupees is CGST amount, another 300 rupees is SG amount. Now, I have to start utilizing the credit. First, what I should start with? I have to start with IGST. I have to start with IGST credit. What is the total balance? 1300. IGST should be first utilized for making payment of IGST only. Okay, I have used it. After that, am I left out with any other balance? Yes, still I am having 300 rupees of IGST. Now this I can use it for CGST or I can use it for SGST. In any manner I want, I can use it. Assume that we will do different combinations, but I will tell you the logic finally, but I want you to understand the concept very clearly. So I will use, or let me tell you one thing here. Okay. So this example we'll try to solve. So 300 rupees of IGST balance I am left with. So first what I am doing is, since I can use this 300 for anything, I can use it for CGST also, I can use it for SGST also, or in any manner I want, I will use it. So assume that I have used entire 300 rupees of IGST credit for CGST payment. So 300 also I have used. Is there anything left out? No. Okay. After adjusting this, what is the amount I am required to pay? Am I required to pay anything under IGST? No. Am I required to pay any CGST? No. Am I required to pay SGST? Yes. 300 rupees still I have to pay. Okay. So now, next, what I have to take? CGST. How much amount of CGST credit I have? I have 200 rupees of credit. So now I have 200 rupees of credit. Now, do I have any CGST liability to pay? No. Do I have any IGST liability to pay? No. Can I use this credit for SGST? No, that you can't do it. So what happening is, SGST balance, I can't use it. So I have my 200 rupees with the government. Whatever CGST I have paid, that I can't use it. That amount is still there lying with the government. Okay. After this, still how much amount I am required to pay? IGST 0, SGST, CGST 0, SGST 300. Now how much of SGST credit I have? SGST also 200 rupees of credit I have. Can I use this 200 rupees for making payment of SGST? Yes, 200 rupees I will pay. Is there anything left out under SGST? No, no credit is left out under SGST. After that, I am required to pay 100 rupees. This 100 rupees I have to pay it in cash. This 100 rupees I have to pay it in cash. But if you observe carefully here, see, as a businessman, you always want to make least possible amount in cash. Every businessman will have the same objective. So every businessman will always try to pay the least possible amount in cash. But here if you pay attention, I am having my CGST credit of 200 rupees already with the government. But still, if I follow this adjustment, whatever I have told you, I am required to pay still 100 rupees in cash. Can we adjust the input tax credit in some different way so that we can reduce our output tax liability in payment of cash? Let us see what we can do. See, this is correct only. I am not telling this is wrong. Whatever utilization we have done, this is correct. But by using this utilization, it is involving some outflow of cash. Can I do some changes to my utilization in order to reduce my output tax liability payment in cash? Let us see, can we do anything? So let us once again try to solve it. So IGST, then we have CGST, then we have SGST. What is the output tax liability? 1000 rupees I have for IGST, 300 rupees I have for CGST, 300 rupees I have for SGST. Total ITC of IGST, how much I have? 1300 rupees. First, what I should do? I will use it for IGST. Okay, I have used 1000 rupees. Still, I have 300 rupees left. Previously, what we have done is, we have used this 300 completely for SGST. Now, let me do one thing. What I will do is, since I can use this IGST for CGST and SGST in whatever manner I want, I am doing one thing here. I will use 150 rupees here, 150 rupees here. I will use 150 under CGST, I will use 150 under SGST. So that means I have completely exhausted my IGST balance. After this, how much amount I am required to pay? IGST 0, CGST 150, SGST 150. Then you have to take CGST credit. How much CGST credit you are having? 200 rupees. Can I use this CGST for making payment of SGST? Yes. How much SGST amount I am required to pay? How much CGST I am required to pay? 150. How much CGST credit I am having? 200 rupees. So can I use this? Yes, 150 rupees I will use. See, I have still 50 left. Can I use this for the payment of SGST? No, that you can't do it. Okay, after this adjustment, still I am having 50 rupees with the government under CGST. My IGST liability will be 0. CGST liability also will be 0. SGST will be 150. Now let us come to SGST credit. How much credit I am having? 200 rupees. How much I have to pay under SGST? 150 rupees. Can I use it? Yes, use it. 150 rupees I have used here. 150 rupees I will knock it off here. After that, am I required to pay anything in cash? No. Registered person will be happy. Why? Because as a businessman, you always want to reduce your output tax liability payment in cash. To the extent possible, you want to use your input tax credit. I am not telling previous adjustment is wrong. Previous adjustment is also correct only. But that is leading to payment in cash. But if you adjust in this manner, that is leading to lesser payment in cash. Able to understand everybody? So tell me guys, what is the manner of utilization? Guys, this is the only most important thing from this payment of taxes chapter. Listen carefully. So what is the manner of utilization of credit? IGST, use it for IGST. Whatever balance is there, you can use it for either CGST or SGST in whatever ratio you want. Then come to CGST, use it for making payment of CGST. Balance if any, use it for making payment of IGST. Then come to SGST, first use it for SGST, balance if any left, use it for IGST. And CGST can't be used for SGST, SGST can't be used for CGST. Now we will try to solve an illustration. See, why I am explaining this in a very much detailed manner is, from this question will definitely be there. Without this testing the manner of utilization of credit, the question paper itself will not be there. So that's why I'm very specific about this concept. So that's why, even though it is a marathon lecture, I want to solve this for you. I want to solve this. So let me solve this for you. So we'll do an illustration. Simple one only we will do. So in order to make you familiar how to use the credit available, where is it? Come on. Okay, here we have. Yeah. Yes. So this question we will solve. For the sake of our grip on the concept, we'll try to solve this question. XT Private Limited, a supplier of goods, pays GST under regular scheme. It has made the following outward supplies. They are giving the details of outward supplies. Intrastate supply 8 lakh rupees, interstate supply 3 lakh rupees. It has also furnished the information in respect of purchases. See, on your outward supplies, there will be output tax liability. They are even giving you details of purchases. On your purchases, there will be input tax credit. So the entity has made intrastate purchases of 2 lakh rupees and interstate purchases of 50,000. And one more thing here, when they are making intrastate outward supplies, they have to pay CGST, they have to pay SGST. When they are making interstate supply of goods, they have to pay IGST. Yes or no? Then on the purchases, if it is intrastate purchase, they will get credit of CGST, they will get credit of SGST. If they are making interstate purchases, they will get the credit of IGST. Along with that, there is also some opening balance of ITCs are also there. So opening balance of CGST ITC, opening balance of SGST credit, opening balance of IGST credit also they have given. Then they are telling rates of tax also. CGST, SGST are 9%, 9%. If it is IGST, 18%. Both inward and outward supplies are exclusive of taxes. That means whatever figures they have given above, it is exclusive of taxes. All conditions necessary for availing ITC have been fulfilled. Compute the minimum GST payable in cash. Compute the minimum GST payable in cash. See, first what we should do here is, we should calculate our output tax liability. Let us try to calculate the output tax liability. Shall we do it, everybody? Come on, let us do it. So always, as I have told, always follow the format. Input tax, first column, you keep it IGST, how much amount of IGST you are required to pay, how much amount of CGST you are required to pay, how much amount of SGST, what is your output tax liability, that we will calculate. So first they are telling, if you read the material, first they are telling intrastate sales, intrastate supply. So intrastate, that means within the state, intrastate supplies are there. For how much value? Value of intrastate supply is 8 lakh rupees. See, if it is 8 lakh rupees, on intrastate supply, what will be there? CGST will be there, SGST will be there. So on 8 lakh rupees, 9% CGST, SGST both will be there, no? So 8 lakh rupees of intrastate sales they have made, and on that 9% CGST output tax liability, 9% SGST output tax liability. So here, if I write it here, 8 lakh rupees into 9%, 8 lakh rupees into 9%. How much it will be? So 72,000 rupees of output tax liability of CGST, 72,000 rupees of output tax liabilities of SGST. Everybody able to follow this step? Now let us have a look at the next one. Now they are telling there are interstate supply. How much interstate supply is there? So interstate supply. On interstate supply, they have made 3 lakh rupees of sale. If it is an interstate sale, there will be IGST. So 3 lakh rupees into 18%. So how much it will be? 3 lakh rupees into 18%. Just hold on for a second. Okay. So how much it will be? 3 lakh into 18%. It will be 54,000 rupees. So this is your output tax liability. So your output tax liability is IGST of 54,000, CGST of 72,000 and SGST of 72,000. This is your output tax liability. Similarly, we have to calculate what is the ITC balance. What total amount of input tax credit we have, that also we need to calculate. For that also same format, IGST, CGST, SGST. First they are telling there is opening balance. How much amount of opening balance we have? So if you see here, opening balance of IGST, 70,000 rupees of opening balance is there. Okay, 70,000 IGST opening balance. Then next one. Then we have CGST 57,000 rupees of credit is there. CGST 57,000 and SGST 0. Nothing they have. Opening balance is nothing. During the year, they made, during the tax period, they made purchases, no? Intra-state purchases they have made. What they have made? Intra-state purchases. Intra-state purchases if they have made, what credit they will get? CGST, SGST. So CGST credit of 2 lakh into 9%, 2 lakh into 9%. This credit will be accumulated. How much it will be? 18,000 rupees. 18,000 rupees. Similarly, they have also made interstate purchases. How much? 50,000. Interstate purchases 50,000. On this, they will get a credit of 18%. On this, they will get a credit of how much? 18%. So 9,000 rupees of credit they are going to get here. So total, what is the ITC available? 79,000 rupees. 57 plus 18. How much it will be? Sorry. Sometimes 75,000 rupees of CGST ITC they have. 18,000 rupees of SGST ITC we have. So now let us start utilizing the credit. So output tax liability. Once again, the same format you have to follow. What is our IGST, SGST, sorry, not SGST, CGST. CGST and SGST. So what is our output tax liability, guys? First we have to write the output tax liability. How much it is? 54,000 rupees, 72,000 rupees, 72,000 rupees. First, what we have to use? ITC of IGST we have to use. How much amount we have? 79,000. First I will use it for IGST. So 54,000 rupees are, I will use it here. Okay, 54,000 you have used. How much is left out? Still you are left with 25,000 rupees of credit. Now you tell me this 25,000, you can use it for CGST also, you can use it for SGST also in whatever manner we want. But as I have told, you should always try to use the credit in such a manner, your output cash payment is very much minimum. See here, how I will take the decision is, for CGST, you already have enough of credit. For CGST, see your CGST output tax liability is 72,000, but you already have a credit of 75,000 of CGST. So if I utilize this IGST credit for CGST, credit will go waste. But if you see SGST, I have lesser amount of SGST credit. I have lesser amount of SGST credit. So what I will do here is, I will not use this 25,000 for CGST payment, but instead I will use this entire 25,000 rupees for SGST payment. For CGST I will not use total 25,000 rupees. I will use it for which payment? SGST payment I will use. IGST completely exhausted. Guys, why I have taken the decision to use it completely for SGST? Why? Because for CGST I have enough of CGST credit. Enough of CGST credit is there. If I use this here, no, then I have to make a payment of SGST in cash excess amount. So that's why I will use this 25,000 for SGST payment. After these adjustments, how much amount I am required to pay? IGST 0. CGST 72,000 I am required to pay. SGST how much amount I am required to pay? 72 minus 25. So still I am required to pay 47,000 rupees of SGST. Now let us come to CGST credit. How much CGST credit I am having? 75,000 rupees of credit I am having. First I have to use it for making payment of CGST only. So I will use here 72,000. After that I am left with 3,000 rupees. Can I use it for SGST? No, you can't use it. So after this adjustment, how much I am required to pay? IGST 0, CGST 0, SGST I am required to pay 47,000. Now come to SGST credit. How much SGST credit I am having? 18,000 rupees. 18,000 rupees. This I will fully use it for making payment of this amount of 18,000 here. So after that, am I left out with any more SGST? No, that is completely exhausted. Balance if you calculate, so 47 minus 18, this 29,000 rupees you have to make the payment in cash. Finally, you have to make how much payment in cash? 29,000. See, you try any other permutation and combination. This 25,000, instead of using it for SGST, if you have used it for instead of using it for SGST, if you used it for CGST, no, you would have to pay more amount of cash. So this is the best possible utilization where our cash payment is going to be minimum. Where our cash payment is going to be minimum. Clear everybody? Able to understand? So this is how you have to make the utilization of taxes, utilization of input tax credit. The manner of utilization is very, very important. Compulsorily, there will be a question from this chapter. Understood, everybody? So what I have taught you till now in this chapter, what I have revised in this chapter till now. First, we have seen what is electronic liability register, what is electronic credit ledger, what is electronic cash ledger. Then I have told if you have input tax credit, what is the manner of utilization of input tax credit, in what order you have to utilize the input tax credit, that we have seen. Everybody comfortable till here? See, few more important concepts from this chapter, payment of taxes, which are important from the examination perspective. Few more points also I will revise. So mainly I will try to explain regarding how to deposit the cash in the electronic cash ledger. As I've told, if you want to make the payment of taxes in the form of cash, first you need to deposit the cash in your electronic cash ledger, and whatever amount that you have deposited in the electronic cash ledger, that you can use it for making payment of taxes, interest, late fee, penalty, etc. So how to deposit that amount, how to deposit the cash into the electronic cash ledger? See, for that, let me show you one simple things. There are few important things which I need to explain here. See this. So when you have to make the payment of taxes, so you have to go to your login page, you have to register there, and you have to go to the challan. You have to create the challan. So when you are making the payment of taxes, when you want to deposit the cash in your electronic cash ledger, there will be major heads, there will be minor heads. These are major heads, these are minor heads. See, major heads means nothing but CGST, whether you are paying CGST, whether you are paying SGST, or you are paying UTGST, or you are paying IGST, or you are paying cess. So that categorization we call it as major category. That is a what? Major head. Now in each of these taxes also, you might be depositing the amount for tax, or you might be depositing the amount for making payment of interest, or you might be making the deposit for payment of penalty, late fee, or other. So this we call them as minor heads. These are major heads. See, one important thing which you have to always remember, whenever you are required to make the payment of taxes in cash, you have to deposit the amount in appropriate column here. For example, if I have CGST payment to make for 18,000 rupees, this payment I have to make in cash. So when you generate the challan, you have to come to CGST major head. In that tax column, there only you have to write 18,000. There only you have to enter 18,000 rupees. For example, under SGST, I have to make a late fee of some 500 rupees of late fee I have to pay in cash. So now you have to enter this in the appropriate column. Like this is the SGST column. In the SGST major head, you have to come to fee. This is the SGST head. You have to come to the fee. Here you have to enter the amount 500. Here you have to enter the amount 500. Why you have to be very careful here is, why? Because assume that you have deposited 18,000 rupees in the CGST tax column. Later, if you want to use it for making payment of SGST, that can't happen. That can't happen. So if you want to make CGST tax payment, you have to deposit that amount in the respective column and respective row. Able to understand? Assume that I have to pay SGST 500. Take for example, let me elaborate this example only. Assume that I have a obligation. 1 second. Okay, let me explain it. Come on. Okay. So assume that I have to pay CGST interest. I have to pay CGST interest of 1000 rupees I have to pay. Now I have to pay this in cash. While I am generating the challan, what I have done is this 1000 rupees, instead of writing it in the, what is the appropriate place to write here? CGST interest. So CGST interest, here I have to write how much? 1000 rupees. But at the time of generating challan, what I have done is, by mistake, I have recorded it here. But I have recorded it here. Now, sir, can I use whatever amount of cash I have deposited for interest IGST? Can I use it for making payment of CGST interest? No, you can't do it. But this is bringing so many difficulties. So that's why what the act has told is, okay, if you have deposited by mistake here, what you can do is you can submit one more form, GST PMT 09, you can submit and you can transfer the amount from here to here. Then you can use it for making payment. Then you can use it for making payment. So this facility has been provided. Number one, first thing, whenever you are generating the challan, you have to be very careful for which amount you are depositing. If at all, by mistake, if you have entered if you have entered at the wrong place, for example, you are required to make CGST tax payment. Sorry, you are required to make CGST tax payment of 5,000 rupees. Here you have to enter CGST 5,000, but by mistake, you have entered 5,000 here and generated the challan. You can't directly use it for making payment of CGST. But what you can do is you can submit one form GST PMT09 and transfer this amount from here to here, and then you can use it for making payment of the CGST. Able to understand everybody? So these are few specific things which you have to keep in mind. So these are major heads, these are minor heads. In the case of electronic cash ledger, by mistake if you have deposited in any wrong column, you can submit one form and you can transfer it to respective place wherever you want. For example, I have to deposit here, by mistake I have deposited here, no issue, submit one form and transfer it here, then use it for making payment. And what are the various modes of payment? How I can make the payments, or what different modes of payment are accepted? This also they can ask you a question, guys. So let me explain you what are the various modes of payment also. This they might ask you as a theory question. Yeah. Sir, how I can deposit the cash into my electronic cash ledger? Either by using internet banking facility, or by using your UPI facility, or by using IMPS service from the bank, credit card, debit card through the authorized bank, NEFT, NEFT or RTGS, that also you can deposit. Over the counter payment. Over the counter means you have to go to the bank and deposit. You will generate the challan, but cash you will go and deposit it at the bank. Over the counter payment also you can do, but the amount is restricted only up to 10,000 rupees. You can make the payment over the counter by way of over the counter also, but you can maximum pay only 10,000 rupees over the counter. But in some cases, in certain cases, even you can deposit over the counter more than 10,000 rupees. In certain special cases, this you can go through, not that important from the examination perspective. But these various modes of payment are very, very important. What are the various modes by which you can deposit the cash in your electronic cash ledger? By using internet banking facility, by using UPI, by using IMPS, debit card, credit card, NEFT, RTGS, or the counter payment up to a value of 10,000 rupees. Understood? So these are the various modes by which you can make the payment, and also this transferring of money from one head to another head, that is also one more important thing from the examination perspective. Guys, understood everybody? So that's all. This is what regarding payment of taxes. I don't want to go deeper into the payment of taxes because I'm planning to cover one more chapter. I will cover one more chapter. Exemptions I will cover. I will cover what? Exemptions also. See, when it comes to returns, returns chapter is very simple chapter only. Why? Because the returns chapter is all about dates and all. So for returns chapter, like the way I have prepared summary notes, for returns chapter also I have a notes ready that I will share it with you. Returns I will not be revising. Why? Because returns chapter is all about due dates, who has to file, within what time limit he has to file. So all that due dates only will be there in the returns chapter. For that returns chapter, I have summary notes like this. Let me show if I find it. I have summary notes that I will share it with you for sure, so that you can use it for your preparation. Yeah. So like this, I have the summary for the entire returns chapter. What is the time limit? Who has to file? So like this, I have a summary notes. This will be shared with you. You can use it happily for your revision. If you read this charts, that itself is a revision. So that's why returns chapter, I will not be revising. Okay. Then I thought of ignoring exemptions chapter also. Why? Because exemptions chapter is a very bigger chapter, but I have changed my mind. I thought if not all the exemptions, at least let me try to cover the most important exemptions which are very frequently tested in the examination. So next I will be directly proceeding with explaining the exemptions. Once I complete revising the exemptions chapter, with that marathon session will be over. And by that only we would have spent close to some 12 hours or 12 and a half hours for 40 marks of syllabus. We have done almost 12 and a half to 13 hours of revision it will be. So that is that is actually much of a time. So don't expect me to cover even that returns also, and even I have ignored one more chapter, time of supply also I have ignored. Why? Because these two chapters there is nothing concept there to revise. If you read this fast track notes, whatever I will share it with you, that itself will act as a revision. So we have one more last chapter which is required to be covered for our revision, which is going to be exemptions. Shall we start everybody? So let us try to revise the chapter exemptions. So now let us try to revise exemptions. See, once again I am telling you guys, I am not going to revise all the exemptions. Why? Because we can't afford that much amount of time to discuss entire exemptions. But I am going to focus all my attention on a few important exemptions which are very frequently tested in the examination. So let me try to start with charitable and religious activities. So the first category of services which are exempted, which we are going to talk about, is charitable and religious activities. Not all charitable and religious activities. There are certain entries which are given in the notification. which those kind of charitable activities conducted by specific kind of entities, those only will be exempted. So let us try to understand which kind of charitable activities, which kind of religious activities are getting exempted. So first, services by an entity registered under section 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act by way of charitable activities. First exemption, see, who has to provide charitable activities? An entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. So there is an entity which is not registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act, but still they are providing charitable activities. Will that be exempted? No. So in order to avail exemption, two conditions. Number one, whoever is doing that charitable activities, they should have registered themselves under either section 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. And they should be doing charitable activities. Sir, what do you mean by charitable activities? What do you mean by charitable activities? See, the act did not give the scope to you to decide what is charitable, what is not charitable. Sometimes you might find some activity as charitable, but not whatever you feel it as charitable activity. You should not treat it in that way. The act has clearly defined which activities fall under charitable activities. So let us try to understand which activities falls under charitable activities. So first of all, meaning of charitable activities we'll try to understand. When I say charitable activities, number one activity which will be covered is public health by way of taking care or counseling of terminally ill persons or persons with severe physical or mental disability, persons who are afflicted with HIV or AIDS, person addicted to dependence forming substance like narcotics, drug addicts, or promoting public awareness for preventive health, family planning or prevention of HIV infection. So when it comes to public health, these if an entity is providing public health in related to these illness, then that activities will fall under charitable activities. Similarly, if an entity is engaged in advancement of religion, spirituality or yoga, then also those activities fall under charitable activities. And if an entity is engaged in providing educational programs or skill development programs relating to abandoned, orphaned or homeless children, physically or mentally abused and traumatized persons, prisoners, persons over the age of 65 years residing in rural area. Very important, guys. On this point, they will test you a question. Most of the times they have done it. So what they will ask you a question is, there is an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. This entity is providing educational programs for the persons over the age of 65 years who are residing in a urban area, not a charitable activity. In order to fall under charitable activity, you should have provided education or skill development for a person over the age of 65 years, that too residing in a rural area. Sometimes they will say an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act, they are providing education for the people of the age of 60 years residing in rural areas, does not fall under charitable activity. So only when education has been provided or skill development has been provided to abandoned, orphaned or homeless children, physically or mentally abused and traumatized persons, prisoners and persons over the age of 65 years, that too residing in rural areas. When educational activities are provided to these people, then only it will fall under charitable activity. And also, if an entity is engaged in preservation of environment, including watershed, forest, life. So forest and wildlife, only these four activities will fall under charitable activities. Only these four activities will fall under charitable activities. What are they? Public health, taking care of public health in relation to specific illness, advancement of religion, spirituality or yoga, preservation of environment, or if it is working in providing education to only these kind of people, only those activities fall under charitable activities. So there is an entity which is registered under 12AA or 12AB and they are doing the specified charitable activities, then only those are exempted. Now sometimes they will ask you a question, they will say there is a charitable entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. They are providing services by they are providing the services of advertisement. Exempted, taxable. Why? Because the activities which are charitable, only those activities are exempted. If an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB doing some activity which does not fall under this charitable activities definition, then those services will not be exempted. Those services will be taxable. Like if I have to give here in some important points I have told you here, like if you see here, grant of advertising rights to a person on the premises of a charitable or religious trust or on publications of the trust or on granting admission to events, functions, celebrations, shows, on by against admission tickets or fees, all these services will attract GST. Why? Because none of this activity fall under charitable activities, whatever I have discussed. So an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB, if they perform only specified charitable activities, then only exemption. Whatever activities that I have given here, they never fall under, like advertisement in the religious place or advertisement on the publications of the trust, conducting events, functions, celebrations and selling the tickets for that. These all will not form part of charitable activities. These services will be taxable. Similarly, sometimes there will be a charitable institution registered or a religious institute registered under 12AA or 12AB. What they will do is they will conduct some yoga residential program, or they will conduct some religious residential program where they will take you to some place for 10 days, 15 days. They provide you accommodation, they provide you food, and they will give you yoga training, they will give you spirituality training. Sir, will those services be exempted, sir? If a religious institute is conducting yoga and medication camp where they will take you to some location, they will promote yoga spirituality, but also they provide other services like food and accommodation. For entire amount, for entire package of services, they will collect some amount from you. Will that be exempted or taxable? They will also be exempted provided the predominant activity, the main activity why that camp is getting conducted is advancement of religion, spirituality or yoga. However, some religious entities, some institutes, what they will do is, some entities registered under 12AA or 12AB, what they do is, they plan a camp, but a very little amount of focus they will put it on advancement of religion and spirituality. If anybody does it, for example, there is some entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. They conducted a 10 days camp. They are giving the name yoga camp. But in that camp, yoga is having little importance. It is just like a vacation for these people. Now you tell me, will that be taxable? Yes. So yoga and medication camp by charitable trust, it will be exempted only when the primary and the predominant activity, the main activity of that camp should be advancement of religion, spirituality or yoga, then only exemption. Then only exemption. Clear, everybody? So this is what one kind of service which is exempted under section which is one kind of service exempted under the category of charitable activities. Next one, conduct of religious ceremony. If someone is conducting any religious ceremony, for example, a person is undergoing a marriage, he called a priest and he performed that puja and conducted the marriage. He collected 20,000 rupees of consideration. Will there be any GST on it? No. So if anyone is conducting religious ceremony, see, religious ceremony need not be conducted only by entity registered under 12A or 12AB. Anybody, if anyone is doing religious ceremony, like for example, naming ceremonies will be there, marriage, birth ceremonies, or at the time of death, then at that point of time also ceremonies will be there. So if someone is conducting any religious ceremony, for that if they are charging any consideration, the government told we don't want any tax on it. Tax is exempted. Next one, renting of precincts of religious place meant for general public. So there will be religious institutes, they will rent out the premises of that religious premises. For example, temple will be there. In the temple, for example, if you take TTD, TTD is having very big premises, very big precincts are there. Now, some areas they will rent it out also. Similarly, if you take any church, if you take any mosque, they will have some premises. The entire in the entire premises of that religious place, they will do some renting activities. Even those renting of religious precincts is also exempted. Renting of religious precincts by a religious institute is also exempted, provided here also some conditions are there. To avail exemption, the entity whoever is renting out that premises, that should be registered either under 12AA, 12AB, 1023 clause 5 or 1023 BBA of the sections of the Income Tax Act. See, for charitable activities, only two registrations, either you are to register under 12AA or 12AB. However, for renting of religious places, the entity whoever is providing that services, that could be registered under any of these four sections of the Income Tax Act, either under 12AA, 12AB, 1023 5 or 1023 BBA. So if an entity is registered under any of the sections of the Income Tax Act, and if they are providing the services by way of renting of religious premises, then it will be exempted. However, in some cases, exemption does not become applicable. In some cases, exemption does not become applicable. When so? If inside the religious precincts, there are rooms and that entity is renting the rooms, and if the consideration charged is 1,000 rupees or more per day, then exemption will not apply. Entire value will be subjected to GST. So for example, if a religious place is there, run by an entity registered under any of this section, inside that rooms are there, if they are renting out the rooms, and if they are charging 900 rupees of rent per day, not taxable. If they are charging 1000 rupees or more, then exemption does not become applicable, then they have to pay the taxes on it. Similarly, if any premises like community hall, kalyana mandapam or open area, if these kind of premises are getting rented out and if the consideration charged is 10,000 rupees or more, then also no exemption. So inside the temples there will be kalyan mandaps. So they also rent out that also. If the consideration is less than 10,000 rupees, no GST. But if the consideration for renting out the kalyana mandap or this community halls is 10,000 rupees or more per day, then also there is no exemption, GST will be attracted. Next one, renting of shops or other spaces for business or commerce where charges are 10,000 rupees or more per month. Similarly, if you observe around the temple, church or mosque premises, there will be even shops also. They will rent out the shops also. If any shops are getting rented out for a monthly rent of less than 10,000, then exempted. If the monthly rent for renting out the shops for business or commerce, if monthly rent is 10,000 rupees or more, then it will be exempted. Then it will be taxable. No exemption will be there. Understood? So when it comes to renting of rooms, guys, charges should be 1,000 rupees or more per day. When it comes to community halls, kalyana mandap, consideration is 10,000 rupees or more per day. When it comes to shops, etc., the consideration should be 10,000 rupees or more per month. So if these amounts are exceeded for these activities, then there is no exemption on that, GST has to be paid. Exemption will not become applicable in those cases. Next one. Sir, religious yatra or pilgrimage. Some institutes will conduct religious yatras. Not all religious pilgrimages are exempted. Only exemption has been awarded to 2 religious pilgrimages. What are they? So Kailas Manasarovar Yatra conducted by KMVN, Kumon Mandal Vikas Nigam Limited, and Hajj Yatra committed by Hajj Committee of India. So these 2 entities, whatever religious pilgrimages they are offering, only those 2 religious pilgrimages are exempted. Assume if I am a private tour agency, if I am conducting some yatra, if I am conducting some pilgrimage. So I told, for example, I am a private entity. I don't belong to KMVN. So what I have done is I am a private traveling agency or tour agency. I told the people, I will take you to Kailas Manasarovar Yatra. Will it be exempted or taxable? It will be taxable. Exemption will be there only for 2 entities, for KMVN and or Hajj Committee. When these 2 entities are providing religious pilgrimages, then only exempted. If anybody else is providing the services of religious pilgrimage, then no exemption, GST will be levied on it. Similarly, training or coaching in recreational activities. If an individual is providing training or coaching in recreational activities like arts or culture, exempted. Individual. When it comes to recreational activities, the services should have been, the coaching or training should have been provided by an individual person, then it will be exempted. If coaching or if training or coaching is provided in the area of sports, if provided by charitable entities registered under 12AA or 12AB, then they are exempted. Assume that, let me put a question like this. There is an individual. He is providing training or coaching of sports. This person is not registered under 12AA or 12AB. Will that service be exempted? No, not exempted. Those services will be taxable. So we have to be very careful here. If an individual is providing training or coaching in recreational activities of arts or culture, then exempted. When it comes to training or coaching in sports, if the training is provided by an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB, then only exempted. If somebody else is providing training or coaching in recreational activities of sports, not exempted, the services will be taxable. GST has to be levied and collected on it. Understood? So these are the few examples of charitable and religious activities which are exempted. Everybody able to understand? So this is what the summary of charitable and religious activities related exemption. Shall we proceed further with the next category of exemptions? Let us have a look at the next category of exemptions. So next thing which we are going to discuss, agricultural related services which are exempted, we are going to see. See, as we all know, agriculture is backbone of our country, mainly even today also our economy. So many people are making their livelihood out of agriculture. So one thing, assume that if I am an agriculturist, see, if I do the cultivation and if I sell my agricultural produce, my outward services are anyhow exempted. Why? Because if you remember the registration chapter, I have told, if you are an agriculturist, to the extent you make supply of agricultural produce, you are not required to take registration only. So if I am an agriculturist, if I am a person doing an agriculture and whatever agricultural produce I have, if I go and sell it, I don't need to pay any GST. So now what the government thought is not just outward supplies of agriculturist, even inward supplies which are provided to the agriculturist should also be exempted. Not just outward supplies. See, if the agriculturist is if the outward supplies of agriculturist are exempted, he will not have any output tax liability. Now, if you make input services provided to agriculturist taxable, then what will happen is he will pay GST, but he will not be able to take the input tax credit of it. So what the government has told is, okay, we'll do one thing. Outward supplies of agriculturist also we will exempt. Even inward services provided to agriculturist are also exempted. So let us see which kind of services relating to agriculture are exempted. So first I will talk about this entry number 54. Services relating to cultivation of plants, rearing of all life forms of animals except the rearing of horses for food, fiber, fuel, raw material or other similar products or agricultural produce by way of. So if someone is providing services to an agriculturist by way of cultivation of plants or rearing of all forms of animals except horses. So if someone is providing services for the purpose of rearing of horses, that is not exempted. Any other animal, like for example, someone is raising cattle for the purpose of food, fiber, fuel, raw material or other kind of similar products. Some people will raise hens for the purpose of food, fiber, fuel, whatever it is. So services relating to cultivation of plants and rearing of all life forms of animal except horses. If you are providing services relating to rearing of horses, that is not exempted. Those services will be taxable. Why? Because horses will be grown for commercial purposes, for horse raising and all, for that purposes they will grow. So that's why if you provided services relating to rearing of horses, then exemption will not be there. Other than horses, if you are growing any other animal for the purpose of food, fiber, fuel, raw material or other similar products, then the exemption has been given. Let us see what kind of services relating to agriculture are exempted. Agricultural operations directly relating to production of any agricultural produce like cultivation, harvesting, threshing, plant protection, testing. So if any of these services are getting provided with regard to agriculture, like someone is providing the services of cultivation, someone is doing the services of harvesting, someone is doing the services of threshing, someone is doing the threshing means that after the crop, especially in the case of paddy and all, they will beat the produce like this, no, to take out the grains. I don't know what exactly to say. So that activity we call it as threshing or plant protection or testing. So if someone is providing the services relating to cultivation of land, harvesting of the agricultural produce, threshing of the agricultural produce, plant protection or testing of the agricultural produce, all those services are exempted. On that, government told we don't want any GST. Similarly, supply of farm labor. See, if I am a person, if I am providing labor, farm labor, I am providing to a person, whoever is doing the agriculture, I am supplying labor to an agriculturist. Even that services are also exempted. Supply of farm labor is also exempted. Processes carried out at an agricultural farm, including tending, pruning, cutting, harvesting, drying, cleaning, trimming, sun drying, fumigating, curing, sorting, grading, blah blah blah, all this which do not alter the essential characteristics. Most important point here, whatever activity you are doing, that should not alter the essential characteristics of agricultural produce, and it should make it marketable only for primary market. Which means, take for example, I am taking tomatoes. Tomatoes is an agricultural produce. On the tomato, some activity is done. By that, it was converted to ketchup. It was converted to ketchup. Tell me the activity of converting the tomatoes to ketchup. Will it be taxable? Yes. Why? Because essential characteristic of the product has been changed. Tea leaves are there. Tea leaves will be there. That is an agricultural produce. That tree leaves is getting processed and getting converted into this retail tea. Whatever we get it in the form of powder or some kind of thing, no? But initially, agricultural produce is tea leaves. But the tea powder which we have is, that is not an agricultural produce. If you are doing some activity by which tea leaves are getting converted to tea powder, is that activity exempted? No. Why? Because it is changing the essential characteristic of the product. Coffee beans will be there. Coffee beans is an agricultural produce. If you are doing some activity for converting the coffee beans into coffee powder, taxable. Why? Because it is changing essential characteristic of the product. Sugarcane is there. You are doing some activity on the sugarcane and converting it into jaggery. Will that activity be taxable? Yes. Why? Because essential characteristic is getting changed. Paddy is there. That paddy you are doing the milling and converting it into rice. Will it be taxable? Yes, it will not be exempted. Why? Because essential characteristic of the product has changed. So any activity which you are doing like tending, pruning, cutting, harvesting, drying, cleaning, blah, 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 whatever you call it, which do not alter the essential characteristics of agricultural produce, those activities are exempted. However, if you are doing some activity because of which essential characteristics are getting altered, like tomatoes are getting converted into ketchup, tree leaves are getting converted into tea powder, coffee beans are getting converted into coffee powder, sugar cane is getting converted into jaggery, paddy is getting converted into rice, it is changing essential characteristic, these activities will be taxable. Able to understand? Next, renting or leasing of agro machinery or vacant land with or without a structure incidental to its use. For example, I have some plant and machinery for agricultural produce. I am renting out the plant and machinery to a farmer. I am renting out agricultural machinery which he can use it for the purpose of his agriculture. Exempted, no GST on that. Or loading, unloading, packing, storage or warehousing of agricultural produce. Once again guys, loading, unloading, packing, storage of agricultural produce only. For example, loading of jaggery is happening. Exempted or not? Not exempted. Jaggery is not an agricultural produce. Loading of ketchup, not an agricultural produce. Loading of coffee powder, not an agricultural produce. Loading of coffee powder, tea powder, not an agricultural produce. Why? Because tea leaves are agricultural produce, tomatoes are agricultural produce, coffee beans are agricultural produce, sugar cane is an agricultural produce, paddy is an agricultural produce. But these outcome which essential characteristics has changed, that is not an agricultural produce. Able to understand everybody? So that's why loading, unloading, packing, storage or warehousing of only agricultural produce is exempted. Agricultural extension services. Sir, what is agricultural extension services? When I say agricultural extension services, which means these are providing training to the farmers, how they can make use of the new technology, how they can protect their crop from calamities. So some training will be provided to the farmers. So if someone is providing the services of providing training to the farmers to use the new technologies, new irrigational facilities, that we call it as agricultural extension services. Even those services are also exempted. And even services provided by Agricultural Produce Market Committee, APMC, Agricultural Produce Market Committees will be there to regulate the prices of the agricultural produce. Services provided by way of agricultural this APMC or services provided by commission agent for sale or purchase of agricultural produce, even those services are also exempted. So 2 points I have embedded here. Number 1, services provided by APMC. Similarly, services provided by commission agent for sale or purchase of agricultural produce, even those activities are also exempted. So all these activities relating to agriculture are exempted. Few more exemptions are also there. Services by way of loading, unloading, packing, storaging or warehousing of rice. I told rice is not an agricultural produce, but still rice is one of the essential product. Even though not an agricultural produce, it is an essential product now. So that's why what the government has told is when it comes to rice, if someone is providing the services of loading, unloading, packing, storage or warehousing of the rice, government told we don't want GST on it, we will exempt it. Similarly, services by way of warehousing of minor agricultural produce. When I say minor forest produce, sorry. So minor forest produce means a tamarind. So these kind of things will come under tendu leaves. So these will come under minor forest produce. Warehousing of minor forest produce is also exempted. If I am doing warehousing of sandalwood, not exempted. Sandalwood is not a minor forest produce. So warehousing of only minor forest produce is also exempted. Services by way of storage or warehousing of cereals, pulses, fruits and vegetables, that is also exempted. And also services relating to this we have already covered. Entry number 54 I have already covered. So these are the various agricultural activities. Few more things are also there. Carrying out an intermediate production process as a job work in relation to cultivation of plants, rearing of all life forms of animals except the rearing of horses for food, fiber, fuel. Nothing but when it comes to this agricultural plants or rearing of all form of animals except horses, if someone is providing job work services, on the agricultural produce or in relation to rearing of animals and all, even that job work services relating to that agricultural produce or rearing of animals other than horses is also exempted. Next one, services by way of preconditioning, pre-cooling, ripening, waxing, retail packaging, labeling of the fruits. On apples you will be able to find the labels, no? And vegetables which do not change or alter the essential characteristics is also exempted. See, nothing but these are the activities specifically we do it for fruits and vegetables. Even those activities are also exempted. And also services by way of artificial insemination of livestock other than horses. If someone is doing the services of artificial insemination of horses, taxable. Other than horses, for any other animal, if any artificial insemination is happening, then it will be exempted. Understood, everybody? And one point, this is very important, custom milling of paddy into rice. This activity is not exempted. Why? Because when you are converting, when you are doing some milling of paddy and from that rice is getting generated, it is changing the essential characteristic of the product. So that is not an agricultural activity. That activity will not be exempted. Those activities will be taxable. Understood? This is one important specific point. Why? Because repeatedly they tested in the examination. That's why I have mentioned it specifically. Understood, everybody? Guys, I know I'm a bit fast while I'm explaining this, because each category of service we can, if I have to explain in a detailed manner, each category of service will take an hour. If you remember in our regular classes, when I have taught you the regular classes, if you have remembered charitable and religious activities, I have taught you close to 2 hours. Agricultural services, I have taught this particular category of services close to 1.5 hours. That too when I explain it with a limited number of examples. So the scope of exemptions is very huge. Don't expect me to go into detail and cover each and every point, meaning of what is this artificial insemination, what do you mean by ripening, what do you mean by pruning, cutting, all this I can't go and explain. Just I can tell you the terms, these activities are exempted. Understood? So these are the exemptions relating to agricultural activities, agricultural related services. These are actually exempted. Understood? So two categories of exemptions we are done: charitable and religious activities and agricultural related services. Let us now go ahead and try to understand some other categories of exemptions. So coming to the next category of services, educational services. See, I will explain the gist of educational services. First thing, they say the services provided by educational institutions are exempted. Some services provided to educational institutions are also exempted. Sir, which outward supplies of educational institutions are exempted? Which inward supplies to educational institutions are exempted? I will try to explain it. Don't worry, I will talk about it. But first we should know which entities actually fall under educational institutions definition. Which activity falls under educational institutions, which entity falls under educational institution, that we have to understand. For example, I am providing CA inter coaching classes. I am providing coaching? No. I am also educating the students. Will I come under educational institution? The answer is no. So first we have to understand what actually falls under the definition of educational institution. We need to understand that first. So first we will try to understand which institutes fall under educational institutions. Educational institution means an institution providing services by way of preschool education and education up to higher secondary school are equivalent. Nothing but there is a school which is providing the education from preschool, from nursery till class 12. That institutes will fall under educational institutions. Basically, schools and colleges will come here. Similarly, if an institution providing services by way of education as a part of curriculum for obtaining a qualification recognized by any law for the time being in force. For example, there is a degree college which is providing the qualification of BCom. Students who read in that college, after their qualification, they get a BCom certificate recognized by law. There is an engineering college which is providing BTech services. There is a college which is providing MBA degree. These are all the qualifications recognized by law. If an institute is providing education in relation to a qualification which is recognized by any law for the time being in force, like BCom, BTech, MBA, those colleges also will be exempted. Degree colleges, BTech colleges, etc. Sorry, those institutes also will fall under educational institutions. Education as a part of approved vocational education course. Sir, what is this approved vocational education course? There will be ITIs, modular skill develop, modular employable program. Like specifically, if I have to show you, if you go to exemptions chapter on. Yeah, here we'll be able to find it. Sir, what will fall under approved vocational education courses? A course run by ITI, Industrial Training Institute, or ITC, Industrial Training Centers. Those will actually form part of vocational education courses. Similarly, a modular employable skill program. So often you hear it, ITI, ITC, modular employable skill program. That means they offer the skills in order to create livelihood for the people. Like they provide the services relating to, they provide education relating to small professions like electrician, plumbing. So these kind of services they will provide. This kind of education they provide. Those institutes we call, those kind of trainings we call them as approved vocational education courses. Only those educational institutes which are offering education in these areas, they will only be recognized as educational institutions. Now let us come to CA coaching institutes. Assume there is a CA coaching institute. So take ourselves only. We are providing classes for CA Inter. If you learn from our institute, do we give any certificate to you? Will we give CA certificate? No, right? It is just a what? Coaching institute. It is not an education. It's not an education institution. Similarly, NEET training, NEET coaching institutes, MSET coaching institutes, IIT JEE coaching institutes, will they fall under educational institutions category? No. Why? Because if you read there, you will not get any degree. That institute will not give you any degree. Hey, if you take the classes from us, will we give the CA certificate to you? No, right? So like CA coaching centers, or you take this IIT, JEE, NEET training institutes, these are not educational institutes. These are not educational institutes. These are actually coaching centers. Their services will not be exempted. So when I say educational institute, only three kinds of institutes will fall here. Those institutes which provide education from preschool education up to class 12, or those institutes which provide education relating to qualification recognized by law like BCom, BTech, MBA, etc. And education which is approved vocational education course like private like ITIs, ITCs, and also modular skill generation program. So these kind of educational services, if any entity is providing, those only will fall under educational institutions, and exempted will be there only for those educational institutions. For CA coaching center, for NEET training center, IIT JEE coaching center, for them exemptions will not be there. Now let us try to understand which services are exempted. See, when it comes to outward supplies of the educational institutions, whatever services which are provided by educational institutions to its student, faculty, staff, every service provided by educational institution to its students, to its faculty, to its staff, everything is exempted. Everything is exempted. Sir, educational institution is providing education, and for that they are charging fees, sir, tuition fees, exempted. Sir, they are providing transportation to the students, faculty, and staff, bus fees they are collecting, exempted. They are providing food to the students, faculty, and staff, and they are collecting mess fees, exempted. They are providing hostel facilities to the students, faculty, and staff, collecting the hostel fees, exempted. So any service provided by educational institution to its students, faculty, and staff, any service, any outward service provided by educational institution to its students, faculty, and staff are always exempted. Similarly, services provided by way of conduct of entrance examination against consideration in the form of entrance fees. See, if any educational institution is conducting an entrance examination, see for example, take for example Loyola Public School. See, in Loyola Public School, if you want to get an admission, students have to write an exam. If the student has to write an exam, for that examination fees, assume they will collect some 2,000 rupees. Every year, assume some 1,000 students are writing the examination. 1,000 students into 2,000 rupees of entrance fees, which will be totally 20 lakh rupees. Totally how much? 20 lakh rupees of entrance fees they will collect for conducting entrance examination. That is also exempted. That is also exempted. So outward services supplied by or provided by educational institution to its students, faculty, staff, exempted. And similarly, services provided by educational institution by way of conduct of entrance examination against consideration in the form of entrance fees, that is also exempted. That is also exempted. Now few more things I want to talk about it here. See, if you pay attention, there will be BTech colleges. BTech college, engineering colleges will be there. See, engineering colleges will conduct this campus placement. Campus placement. For example, TCS company want to participate in the campus placement. In order to allow the company to participate in the campus placement, they are providing the services to the TCS company, and TCS company will pay some consideration. For example, some engineering colleges they are conducting campus placement. If any company wants to participate in that campus placement, they have to pay some fees to the college. Here, engineering college is providing services to that prospective employer. They are coming to recruit the people. So assume that in order to participate in that campus placement, TCS company paid 1 lakh rupees fees to that engineering college. Exempted or taxable? Taxable. Taxable. Why? Because this is not a service provided to its students. This is not a service provided to the faculty. This is not a service provided to the staff. See, they are providing services to the companies so that they allow the companies to come to their premises and recruit the people. So services not provided to the faculty, students and staff to an outsider, those services will not be exempted, those services will be taxable. Able to understand? So when it comes to educational institutions, services provided only to students, faculty and staff are exempted, and conducting of entrance examination in return for consideration in the form of entrance fees, that is also exempted. Okay, so this is what outward supplies, exemption relating to outward supplies. Now let us talk about exemptions given to inward supplies. See, there are 5 kinds of inward services which are specified. There are 5 kinds of inward services of educational institution. What are they? Transportation. Someone is providing the services to the educational institution for transportation of students, faculty, staff. So assume I have a bus. I agreed with the educational institution, sir, I will provide transportation of your students. So I am providing services to the educational institution. That is an inward service. Similarly, one more activity, catering services. Educational institution is receiving catering services. Or they might receive security, cleaning or housekeeping services, inward services. Services relating to admission or conduct of examination. For example, an education institution wants to conduct an exam. They have asked one person to set the question paper. For example, some institute is conducting, for example, some BCom college is conducting examination. They approached me and asked me to prepare the question paper for them. So I am providing the services to an educational institution in relation to conducting of an examination. And one more service is supply of online educational journals or periodicals. So when it comes to inward services to the educational institutions, they talk about 5 services. What 5 inward services they will talk about? Number 1, transportation. Number 2, catering. Number 3, security. Then we have conduct of examination, services relating to conduct of examination, and online journals and publications. So these are the 5 services which we are going to talk about. See, when it comes to educational institution which is providing education from preschool up to class 12 schools. So from nursery till class 12, if an educational institution is providing the education, nothing but the first category of educational institution. So when it comes to this kind of educational institution, 4 inward services are exempted. Which 4 inward services are exempted? If someone is providing transportation services to an educational institution which is providing education up to class 12, exempted, no need to pay the tax. If an educational institution which is providing education up to class 12, if it is receiving catering services, that is also exempted. On that also no GST. If a school is receiving security or housekeeping or cleaning services, exempted. Similarly, if a school is receiving the services relating to conduct of examination, that is also exempted. However, supply of online educational journals and periodicals, these are not exempted. These inward supplies provided to the schools or colleges providing education up to class 12, these activities will be taxable. These inward services will be taxable. So I will call it as category 1 education institution, category 2 education institution, category 3. So when it comes to category 1 education institution, out of 5 input services, 4 input services are exempted. What are they? Transportation, catering, security, cleaning, housekeeping, and services relating to conduct of an examination. If someone has provided services of online education journals or periodicals to category 1 kind of education institutions, that inward services are not exempted. On that GST has to be collected. On that GST will be collected by the supplier. This is what when it comes to category 1 educational institution. When it comes to category 2, sir, what is category 2? BCom colleges, BTech colleges, MBA colleges. When it comes to these category 2 educational institutions, only 2 input services are exempted. What are they? Services relating to conduct of an examination, supply of online education journals or periodicals. Only these 2 services or these 2 inward supplies to category 2 educational institutions are exempted. The balance 3 inward supplies will be taxable. Now, when it comes to category 3 educational institution, what is category 3 educational institution? Services, educational services relating to approved occasional education course like ITI, ITC, etc. When it comes to these educational institutions, only 1 inward service is exempted. If someone is providing the services relating to conduct of examination, only that inward supply is exempted. Balance all 4 inward services will be taxable. Understood? So which inward supplies provided to educational institutions will be exempted, which will be taxable? That depends on what is the category of the educational institution. So I have summarized it here. You can use this chart. This charts will be shared with you. Don't worry. So please use this chart to understand which kind of inward services are exempted for which kind of education institution. Once again, I am repeating. When it comes to category 1 educational institution, what is category 1 educational institution? Which is providing education from preschool up to class 12. 4 input services are exempted. transportation, catering, security, admission or conduct of an examination. When it comes to category 2 educational institution, what is category 2 educational institution? Which is providing a education relating to qualification required by law. Two inward services will be exempted. What are they? Services relating to conduct of an examination, supply of online education journals or periodicals. When it comes to category 3 educational institution, which is providing education relating to approved occasional education course, only one input service is exempted, services relating to conduct of an examination. Understood? So use this chart in order to have a quick revision. Clear everybody? So this is what summary of exemptions relating to educational activities. Now let us talk about healthcare services. See, healthcare is also important. No, healthcare is very important for the person's survival. So if the government start collecting GST on healthcare services also, then also it will become, then also medical facilities will become costly. A common man will face burden. So that's why what the government told is certain kind of healthcare services also we will exempt. Let us see what kind of healthcare services are exempted. So healthcare services by a clinical establishment. Sir, what is clinical establishment? Hospitals generally. Even pathological labs also will fall under clinical establishments only. Labs will be there, no diagnostic center labs will be there. Those entities also will fall under clinical establishments. So services provided by a clinical establishment or an authorized medical practitioner, nothing but doctors, or paramedics. Paramedics means there's a nurse, physiotherapist, they will fall under paramedics. The services provided by these people. Healthcare services provided by clinical establishment, which includes even diagnostic center and pathological labs. Services provided by an authorized medical practitioner or services provided by paramedics. Healthcare services, those will be exempted. See, first we need to understand, sir, which activity will fall under healthcare services. Which activity will fall under healthcare services? Which activity we can call it as healthcare services? Let us see. So what will fall under healthcare services? Healthcare services means any service by way of diagnosis. Diagnosis means what? Finding the problem. And treatment. You are either finding the disease or you are treating the disease, or you are caring for illness, injury, deformity, abnormality, pregnancy in any recognized system of medicine in India. So healthcare services means the services by way of identifying a disease, treating a disease, or taking care of illness relating to any injury, deformity, abnormality, pregnancy in any recognized system of medicine. Sir, what is recognized? Which systems of medicine are recognized in India? See, these are only recognized systems of medicines in India. What are they? Allopathy, nothing but English medicine, whatever we use. Yoga is also a recognized system of medicine. Naturopathy, Ayurveda, homeopathy, Siddha, Unani, or any other system of medicine that may be recognized by central government. Okay. See, when someone has provided services relating to these medical systems, then only exemption. So now, for example, if someone is treating a disease by doing some puja or by doing some black magic, is that a recognized system of medicine in India? No, those services will not be exempted. Only these are the recognized systems of medicine in India. So if someone is treating some illness, injury, abnormality, pregnancy using these systems, using these medical systems like allopathy, yoga, naturopathy, Ayurveda, homeopathy, Siddha, Unani, or any other system of medicine which is recognized by central government. Only in this recognized system of medicine, if healthcare services are provided, those only will be exempted. So activity will fall under healthcare services is this. Next, including services by way of transportation of the patient to and from a clinical establishment. For example, an hospital is providing the services to bring the patient from their homes and also for dropping the patients at their home. So transportation of the patient, these activities also will fall under healthcare services. However, healthcare services does not include hair transplant surgery, cosmetic or plastic surgery. These activities will not fall under healthcare services. These are beauty treatments, no. So this will not fall under healthcare services unless except were undertaken to restore or to reconstruct anatomy or functions of body affected due to congenital defects, development abnormalities, injury or trauma. For example, some people, a person as a part of accident, his nose was broken. His nose was somewhat damaged. Now doctors performed plastic surgery to fix that nose which was damaged by way of accident. Then it will form part of healthcare services. Or assume that some actor is there, she want to look more beautiful, that's why she undergone plastic surgery. That is not healthcare service. So plastic surgery, cosmetic surgery, if it is done to restore some abnormality as a part of injury, trauma, or by birth some people will have some abnormalities. To fix it, if plastic surgery is getting performed, then it is healthcare service. But for beauty purposes, if that activities are happening, hair transplant, cosmetic, plastic surgery, these activities will not be healthcare services. That means if an hospital, if a clinic is doing hair transplantation, taxable? Yes. If a clinic is doing cosmetic surgery or plastic surgery to make you look more beautiful, taxable. GST will be there. Understood? So these activities will fall under healthcare services, and these healthcare services, if provided by a clinical establishment like hospitals, labs, or by an authorized medical practitioner or by paramedics, then those services will be exempted. Understood, everybody? And however, see, one more thing also they have told here: services provided by clinical establishment by way of providing rooms, where the room charges are more than 5,000 rupees per day to a person receiving healthcare services, then that services will be taxed. For example, a hospital will also give you room for the patient. If they are charging less than 5,000 rupees, less than or equal to 5,000 rupees, if the rent of the room in a hospital is less than or equal to 5,000 rupees per day, then it is exempted. Now, sometimes what will happen is today hospitals have become very advanced. They are providing luxurious rooms. It will look like a 5-star room. It will look like a 5-star room. So some big hospitals, they provide say 5-star facilities to the patients where they will charge per day 10,000 rupees, 6,000 rupees of rent. Then the government is telling that means you are enjoying luxury. You are not taking healthcare there. If you are enjoying 5-star amenities, then you can pay GST also, pay the GST. So if the services are provided by a clinical establishment by way of providing rooms, where room charges are exceeding rupees 5,000 per day, then the healthcare services will not be exempted, then the GST will come. However, if the room is a ICU or critical care unit or intensive cardiac care unit or neonatal intensive care unit, if you are taking these kind of rooms, which rooms? ICU or critical care unit like CCU, ICCU or NICU, neonatal intensive care unit. See, if you are availing these rooms, obviously for this charges will be more than 5,000 rupees only. So if if a hospital is providing services of renting of these kind of rooms, ICU, CCU, ICCU, NICU, for these rooms, even if the consideration charged is more than 5,000 rupees, still GST will not be attracted, GST will be exempted. So apart from this ICU, CCU, ICCU and NICU, if for any other normal rooms will be there. Now after you are taken out from ICU, you will be kept in a normal rooms. For that room, if the rent charged is more than 5,000, then they will be taxable. However, if ICU, CCU, ICCU, NICU, these kind of rooms are given on rent, for that, even if the consideration is more than 5,000 rupees per day, that will be exempted from GST. On that, GST will not come. Understood? Next one. One more activity which is exempted: services provided by way of transportation of patient. Sir, this you have already told, no? You will say, sir, this is already healthcare service, no? But in first point I told healthcare services provided by clinical establishment. See, in the first activity, ambulance services provided by hospital will be exempted. Now, what some people will do is, some people will provide on their own, even though they don't have hospital. For example, they will have some cab or something. They have reserved that cab. They agreed. They are not hospital. There is an individual person. He is providing transportation of patients to and from the hospital. He is not a clinical establishment. Even if someone is not a clinical establishment, but still if they are providing the services of transportation of patient in an ambulance, those services are also exempted. Those services are also exempted. So services provided by way of transportation of patient in an ambulance. Guys, when I say transportation of patient, that could happen not just by road, that could be by rail also, that could be by airways also, in whatever way. If the patient is getting transported, then that services will be exempted. Understood? Either by clinical establishment or other than clinical establishment, services relating to transportation of patients in an ambulance will be exempted. Understood, everybody? So this is what regarding healthcare services. Now I have explained that same thing in very detailed manner. This you can refer it on your own. This you please go through it once. So anyhow, okay, let me go through that only. Rent of rooms provided to inpatients exempted, but in one case it will be taxable. When the room rent is exceeding 5,000 rupees for other than CCU, ICU, etc., then it will be taxable. If the room rent is less than 5,000 rupees, then only exempted. Sir, services provided by senior doctors, consultants, technicians, everything is exempted. Amount charged by hospitals from the patients, exempted. Whatever amount the hospital is charging from the patients, exempted. Sir, food supplied to the patients. One simple thing you have to remember: if food is supplied to inpatients, exempted. If for example, if a patient gets admitted, he needs to follow some diet. So that's why what hospitals will do is they will provide food to the inpatients also, exempted. But if the hospital is running a canteen in which they offer food for attendants of the patients also, with patients attendants also will be there, for them they are providing the food in some canteen, those services will be taxable. Only food provided to inpatients is exempted. Food provided to the attendants etc who are not admitted into the hospital, for them if the food is getting provided, those activities will be taxable. Services other than healthcare services, those are taxable. Like for example, supply of services other than healthcare services, such as renting of shops. In the if you take some big hospitals, if you take multi-specialty hospitals, they will rent out to some shops like some pharmacy shops etc. That is not healthcare service, that is taxable. Similarly, they rent out auditoriums in the hospital, that is also taxable. So apart from healthcare services, if any other services are provided by a clinical establishment, those services will be subject to GST. Understood? So 4 categories of exemptions I have explained. What are they? Charitable activities, agricultural related activities, healthcare related activities, and education services. 4 categories of exemptions I have covered. I will cover one more category. 2 more categories I will cover. Transportation of passenger services, transportation of goods. This also I will cover. Quickly I will try to cover, guys. So when it comes to transportation of passengers, if the transportation of passengers is happening by rail, then if it is by way of metro, monorail, tramway, like in Mumbai there will be metro, if you go to Kolkata there will be tramway. So services provided to transportation of passengers in metro, monorail, and tramway, that is exempted. Sir, what about other than metro, monorail and tramway? Normal railways. What about those services? So if transportation of passengers is happening by way of railways in first class or AC, then it will be taxable. Other than first class and AC, if the transportation of passengers is happening by railways, then it will be exempted. So very simple logic, guys. If railways is providing transportation of passengers, the transportation of passengers provided through metro, monorail, tramway, always exempted. When it comes to other categories, other kind of railways, if it is first class or air conditioner, then it is taxable. If it is other than first class and air conditioner, then it will be exempted. Now, let us come to air. So when it comes to air traveling, if you are embarking or terminating, that means either you are boarding on the flight or you are getting down from the flight in any of these states, in any of these airports, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Sikkim, Tripura, Nagaland and Bagdodra in West Bengal. So either you are boarding from this place, from this airport, or you are departing at this airport. And if you are traveling by way of economy class, not business class, if you are traveling by way of economy class in a airways, either you are boarding your flight or you are landing from the flight in any of these places, then those services will be exempted. Similarly, services provided by way of air, by way of transportation of passengers to to the central government, where embarking or terminating is taking place from RCS. So this is actually what is this? If I have to explain, it will take more time. So okay, let me take the freedom and explain it here. This one point I will explain, RCS related point. So passenger transportation services, quickly I will try to cover, guys, will not take much of a time. Yeah, see here, RCS. So services which are provided to the central government, that means some airline company is providing services to the central government by way of transportation of passengers with or without accompanied belongings, either from embarking or terminating at a RCS, regional connectivity scheme airport, against consideration in the form of viability gap funding. See, what actually they try to say here is, see, there are some remote airports in our country where the people's traveling passengers from that airports will be very low. For example, let me give you one simple example. Take for example Assam. Just I am giving you an example. Assam is anyhow covered in the special category state. No, let me take some other example. So what I was trying to say here is, see here, anyhow Assam is covered. Let me take some another state. Which state we will take? Okay. Okay, guys, for example sake, anything we can use. For example, assume that there is one airport in Bihar. In the Bihar also some place not so well known. So in that place, assume that there is an airport. There is a airport. Here passenger flow is very low. So that's why what some airline companies started doing is they stopped operating flights through these locations. They stopped operating the flights to these locations. They have not they are not providing they are not running their flights through these airports. So that's why these airports are not running only. Why? Because like if you take Indigo Airlines is not showing any interest to run the flights from this location. So similarly, Air India is also not showing any interest in running the flights from this location. So that's why even though the government has built the airport here, but the airline service providers are not showing any interest. So that's why what the government has told is, dear airline companies, you do one thing. You provide, if someone is embarking or terminating at this airport, you provide, you offer the tickets at a very less price. You offer the tickets at very less price. For example, normally it will charge normally for a flight, for a flight ticket, they will charge 4,000 rupees. But what the government told is, dear Indigo Airlines, please run a flight from this remote location. You charge only 2,500. Why? Because if you charge less money, more people will show interest. Now the airline company will say, sir, you are telling provide the transportation of passengers at a price of 2,500 rupees only, but our cost itself is very much higher, sir. Government told, don't worry, I am telling you, you run the flight from this location. What I will do is, whatever loss you are making, that we will compensate. Whatever loss you are making, that we will compensate. Normally you will collect 4,000, no? You provide that passenger transportation at 2,500 rupees only. Balance 1,500 rupees we will give you as a consideration. So this is what we generally call it as RCS airports, which are very remote areas, which people will not show any interest. Float will be very less. So that's why airline companies are not showing any interest to run the flights from this location. So that's why what the government told is, you do one thing, you run the flights from this location at a very low price, but don't worry about the losses, we will compensate for you. So here an airline company is providing services to the central government by way of transportation of passengers who are either embarking or terminating at RCS facility. Even those services are also exempted. Government told, okay, we will give you exemption. Government is giving 1,500 per ticket as a consideration to that airline company, no? So government told, okay, on this also will not collect any GST. You please start providing services to this RCS also. That's it. So that's what I am telling you here. Services provided by way of transportation of passengers, which is provided to central government who are embarking or terminating at an RCS. However, this exemption will be available only for 3 years from the date of commencement of operation at RCS airport. From the date of commencement of that RCS airport, up to 3 years only this exemption will be provided. After 3 years, even those services also will be taxed. Next one. So this is regarding airways. Now let us come to water. Transportation of passengers by way of water. See, if transportation of passengers is happening by way of inland waterways, exempted. If the transportation of passengers is happening by way of inland waterways, always exempted. However, if the transportation of passenger is happening by way of vessel between places in India, guys, what is inland waterways? Assume this is a India coastal border. Now inside India also we have some rivers. Yes or no? This we call it as inland waterways. Transportation of passengers happening by way of inland waterways, always exempted. However, if the transportation of passengers is happening in a vessel, assume that here there is Chennai. So here there is some other location. Assume there is a Vizag location. From here to here in the ocean, there is a ship going. Now this ship is providing transportation of passengers. When it comes to transportation of passengers in a vessel between the places in India, they are not talking about inland waterways. Inland waterways always exempted. Now what about this ship, sir? This ship is providing transportation of passengers. If it is for public transport, exempted. If it is for public transport, then it is exempted. If it is for tourism purposes, cruise ship is there. It is going from Chennai to Vizag with cruise facilities. Tourism, then it will be taxable. Very simple, guys. Transportation of passengers by way of water, when it is provided through inland waterways, always exempted. When it comes to transportation of passengers by a vessel between the places in India, if it is for public transport, then it is exempted. If it is for tourism purposes, then it will be taxable. Able to understand, everybody? So this is what relating to transportation of passengers by way of water. Then let us come to road. Transportation of passengers by way of road. If the transportation of passengers is happening by way of contract carriage, and if the contract carriage is AC contract carriage, then it will be taxable. Sir, if it is non-AC contract carriage, sir, but however, even though it is non-AC contract carriage, you are using it for tourism purposes, you are using it for conducted tour, or you are using it for charter or hire, these services will be taxable. However, if the contract carriage is a non-AC contract carriage and you are not using it for tourism purposes, you are not using it for conducted tour, you are not even using it on charter or hire, in that cases it will be exempted. In that cases, it will be exempted. So this is what regarding contract carriage. Now, what about stage carrier, sir? Stage carrier means generally buses and all will come here. So when it comes to stage carrier, if the transportation of passengers is happening by way of stage carrier, and if the stage carrier is air conditioned, then it will be taxable. If it is non-air conditioned, it will be exempt. If it is non-air conditioned, it will be exempt. So radio taxi, the transportation of passengers happening by way of radio taxi, always taxable. Air conditioned, not air conditioned, doesn't matter, always taxable. When it comes to services provided by way of transportation of passengers by way of metered cabs or auto rickshaws, including e-rickshaws, that is also exempted. So very simple guys here. If the transportation of passengers is happening by way of contract carriage, if it is air conditioned, taxable. If it is non-air conditioned, but still if it is getting used for tourism, conducted tour, charter or hire, then taxable. If it is getting used for other purposes, exempted. When it comes to stage carrier, if it is air conditioned, taxable. If it is non-air conditioned, it will be exempted. If it is a radio taxi, always taxable. Metered cabs or auto rickshaws, it is exempted. But if you pay carefully attention here, there is one star mark. See, what is the star mark is? See, generally I told these services are exempted. But however, if these services are getting provided through an e-commerce operator, then that services will be taxable. Like I told, metered cabs or auto rickshaw. See, if an auto rickshaw is providing transportation of passengers, generally exempted. But if you book that auto rickshaw by using Ola, that means the transportation of passengers by way of auto rickshaw is provided through e-commerce operator, then those services will be taxable. So whatever star mark I have given, generally those are exempted. See, star mark is there only where it is exempted. But if any of this activity is getting provided through a e-commerce operator, then they will be taxable. Understood everybody? So this is what regarding transportation of passengers. So if you want to know more about what is contract carriage, if you have listened to the classes, you already will get the clarity. What is stage carrier? What is contract carriage? These differences you all want to know, read the chapter once. But however, don't worry, they will say clearly in the question whether it is a contract carriage, whether it is a stage carrier, they will tell you clearly in the question. You need not do much more level of interpretations. So this is what exemptions relating to transportation of passengers. Now let us talk about transportation of goods. Even when it comes to transportation of goods also, there are some exemptions. See, if the transportation of goods is happening by way of air, taxable. If you are receiving services relating to transportation of goods by way of air, then it is always taxable. When it comes to rail, so generally rails, if you are making a transportation of goods by way of rail, that is taxable. But however, through railways, if you are moving these items, the transportation is happening for these products through rail, then it will be exempted. If any other goods are getting transported through the rail, then it will be taxed. Only if these items are getting moved by way of rail, then it will be exempted. What are they? Relief materials, agricultural produce, newspapers, magazines, recognized defense or military equipment, organic manure, milk, salt and food grain. If you arrange it in one order, you can remember it by way of a mnemonic, which is random. So if the goods which are getting transported by rail includes any of these activities, fall under any of this category, then exempted. If any other goods are getting transported through rail, they will be taxable. Understood? Now, when it comes to transportation of goods by way of water, if the transportation of goods is happening by way of inland waterways, exempted. When it comes to vessels between the places in India of following items, like these 6 items, these random items, if in a vessel, see if you are transporting the goods by inland waterways, always exempted. When it comes to transportation of goods in a vessel, like ocean line, for example, from Chennai to, I have used this example here, no? So from Chennai to Vizag, you are moving the goods in a vessel through ocean. So now when it comes to that case, if the items which are getting transported falls under these items, then it is exempted. If it is any other item, then it will be taxable. Able to understand everybody? Inland waterways, all transportation of goods is exempted. But when it comes to vessel between places in India, when the products fall under any of the 6 categories, random here, these 6 categories, then it is exempted. If it falls under any other category, then it will be taxable. Now let us talk about transportation of goods by way of road. So when it comes to transportation of goods by way of road, transportation of goods by way of courier agency, like we have Blue Dart, and also we have DTDC courier. Transportation of goods by way of courier is always taxable. It is always taxable. No exemption is there here. Now let us talk about few more things. When it comes to individual trucks, if you are transporting the goods by way of individual truck or tempo, it is not a transport agency. For example, there is a truck, there is some tempo which is going on the road. So you stopped the tempo, you hired him, you told him, boss, please move the goods from my location to another location. So if the transportation of goods by is happening by way of individual truck or tempo, not a good transport agency, individual truck or tempo, if you are receiving the services of transportation of goods, no GST on that. So transportation of goods by way of individual trucks or tempo exempted. And even transportation of goods in relation to transit cargo to Nepal and Bhutan, that is also exempted. Transit cargo to Nepal and Bhutan is also exempted. Sir, what is transit cargo? See, we have India here. See, Nepal and Bhutan are there. For Nepal and Bhutan, they don't have any coastal line. They don't have any coastal line. See, if they have to import any goods by waterways, what has to happen is first they have to come to India. Now from India by road, they have to go to Nepal or Bhutan. So this we call it as transit cargo. So transit cargo to Nepal or Bhutan. So if the transportation of goods by road is happening in relation to transit cargo to Nepal and Bhutan, that is also exempted. Now we are left with one more category, transportation of goods done by a GTA, Goods Transport Agency. So when the transportation of goods is initiated or transportation of goods services is getting provided by a goods transport agency, then what about exemptions? Let us see. See, transportation of goods is happening by way of road and goods transport agency is doing it, but the goods which are getting transported falls under random category. What is random category? These 6 items. If these goods are getting transported through a goods transport agency, exempted, no GST. Sir, goods are getting transported, but the service recipient, whoever is receiving that transportation of goods services, is a department or entity, department or establishment of central government, state government, union territory, local authority or government authority, which has been established exclusively, which has taken registration to deduct tax. If the recipient falls under this category, services provider is GTA, but the recipient is department or establishment of central government, state government, union territory, local authority or government authority who have taken registration to deduct TDS under section number 51, then also those services exempted. If the recipient falls under any of this category, exempted. Next, sir, GTA is providing services. Service recipient is a registered person, sir, including a CTP. Those services are taxable, and in this case, RCM will become applicable. This I have already covered in the charge of GST chapter. So GTA is providing services to already registered person, including a casual taxable person. Those services are taxable. RCM will become applicable. Similarly, GTA is providing services to unregistered person, but unregistered person falls under a factory registered under Factories Act, a society registered under Societies Registration Act, a cooperative society, body corporate, partnership firm, association of persons, or including LLP also. See, if the recipient of GTA falls under these category, even though they are unregistered, I have told here RCM will become applicable. These people have to take the registration now and pay the GST. Yes or no? If you are already registered, you will pay tax under reverse charge mechanism. If you are receiving GTA services, you fall under any of this category. Currently, you are not registered. But now what you should do, since you become liable to pay the tax under reverse charge mechanism, these people will take the registration now and pay the GST under reverse charge mechanism. Understood, everybody? Sir, GTA service provider is providing services to other than registered person, to other than any of these people. So services provided to others other than 1 and 2. When I say other than 1 and 2, the recipient is neither a registered person. The recipient also does not fall under any of this category. Then those services are exempted. So this is what the status of exemption related to transportation of goods by a goods transport agency. Understood, everybody? So I know I have taken the things in a very quicker way, but this is what only I can do. I can't explain the exemptions chapter in a very detailed manner, but simply if you refer to this chart also, that will act as a good revision for this. So that's all, guys. This is what I thought of covering in this marathon. Hope whatever recordings I have done for this marathon, this will definitely help you out for your examination. A lot of effort has been put into this marathon. See, you don't know, for preparation of this charts, for preparation of this summary notes, for each chapter I have spent almost some 5 hours 6 hours of time to develop these notes, or if you take exemptions, even these things I have prepared using one dedicated software. So lot of background work has taken place in bringing this marathon before you. Hope you guys will definitely enjoy this marathon videos, and also This will help you for your quick revision and help you for examinations. So that's what I'm hoping. That's what all my efforts are dedicated for. I wanted to make sure that you are feeling comfortable when you go for the examination. That's what my entire objective is. With that spirit, I have put this much amount of effort. Say I could have recorded all the marathon lectures directly from the material, but that will not be a suitable revision, I thought. So that's why I spent a huge amount of time in developing all the summary notes. And I thought, okay, it might take some time, but I'm ready to put all that time and energy to develop the notes. Then only I thought of doing the marathon, or else you would have seen this marathon a long time ago. But since I have to develop all this notes, that's why it was a bit delayed. But still, we worked a lot for bringing this before you. Hope you guys will like it. You will share it with others also, and also help the other students to learn from this marathon. So thank you so much, everybody. And as promised, some chapters I did not revise, but I will definitely have prepared the notes for that. I will definitely share that with you so that you can use it for your revision when it comes to those chapters which I did not cover in this marathon videos. So that's all from my side, guys. Thanks for your patience listening till now. Hope you guys will hope you guys do promote us and share our efforts and lectures with others also. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care. Signing off. Bye.